I transferred ownership of the house back to myself at 3 in the morning. That number on the clock felt like a death sentence, a ticking ultimatum. My hands didn't shake as I signed the documents on the polished desk of my lawyer, Martin's home office. There was no hesitation in them, only a leaden weight. The only sounds were the dry scratch of pen on paper. The sound seemed deafeningly loud, and the distant, rhythmic hum of his wife's oxygen machine upstairs. That sound of ventilating lungs in the stillness of the night was the soundtrack to my betrayal, or to my salvation. Marcus had no idea what I'd just done. He slept soundly in my bedroom, under my roof, believing the house was already his. No, son, not again. Let me back up. Let me start with my name. My name is Robert Chen. I'm 67, and until 6 months ago, I, an old fool, fervently believed I had a good son. Not perfect. How could he be perfect? But good. Human. Marcus was my only one, the light of my eyes. His mother, my late Diana, died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. It was so fast and so cruel that it burned my soul to the ground, leaving only ashes. Marcus seemed devastated. He rushed from Seattle, where he had a wife, Jennifer, 2 children. He held my hand at the funeral, so tightly my bones crunched. He gave a speech that made everyone weep. He stayed for 2 weeks, silently sorting through her dresses, her books, forcing me to swallow soup and blood pressure pills. Then he flew back to his life. And I remained, alone in our 4-bedroom house in Portland, which Diana and I bought in 1985 for $90,000. In this brick witness to our entire lives, in a house now valued at $1,200,000, in a house that became a gold bar while Diana and I simply lived, raising our son and not noticing how the world was gentrifying around us. For 2 years, I built my fragile little world. Coffee at 6 sharp, a walk to the park, lunch with Bernie, the library on Tuesdays, and a call to Marcus every Sunday. His voice on the phone, stories of IT sales, Emma and Tyler's successes, Jennifer's yoga. It was a thin thread connecting me to the world of the living. Everything seemed tolerable. Until that March. He called on Wednesday. My heart sank like a stone. A call in the middle of the week always means trouble. Dad, his voice was taut as a string. I need to talk. Really serious. I braced myself for the worst. Cancer, an accident, grandchildren. I lost my job, he blurted out. The whole department's been cut. I've been looking for 3 months. Nothing. And Jen, her studio closed. We're burning through the last of it. School, mortgage. We're drowning, Dad. That same ancient switch clicked inside me. Parental instinct. Death, blind, all-consuming. How much do we need? I exhaled, already mentally crunching the numbers. It's not just about the money, Dad, he paused, maintaining his pathos. It's deeper than that. Jen and I are thinking, we need to move back to Portland. Seattle is eating us up, and you're alone in this huge house. You never know. You'll fall, and there's no one to help you. He painted the picture, carefully, stroke by stroke. They'll move. We'll be together. Help, company, grandchildren in the yard. He'll have time to find a decent job, not grab the first one. I don't need a sitter, I muttered, but my voice no longer held its former firmness. I know, he hastened. But wouldn't it be great to be a family again? Mom would have wanted that. He slammed her name into the lock of my defenses like a master key, and it clicked, surrendered. They burst into my life last April, with their noise, their chaos, their boxes. My quiet memory museum filled with the screams of cartoons, Jennifer's podcasts about chakras, the heartbreaking sounds of Tyler's saxophone. At first, it was even comforting. It felt different. Life had returned. Marcus and Jennifer took the master bedroom. Temporarily, Dad, honestly, until we sort this out, he said. And I, an old fool, just nodded. It was stupid to argue over rooms when my son's family was struggling. For a month, everything seemed idyllic. Marcus mowed the lawn. Jennifer cooked. The grandchildren kissed me goodnight. I lost myself in the bustle, trying to forget the silence. But then little things started nagging at me. I noticed that Marcus was now the first to pick up the mail. Just a coincidence, Dad, and I'll check to see if any important bills got lost. At your age, that happens. His tone was suffocatingly concerned. I watched Jennifer take pictures of every corner on her phone. Our kitchen, the living room, the view from the window. For the blog, Robert, she chirped. My subscribers love your vintage style." And Marcus, more and more often, casually, dropped numbers into conversations. "Dad, the Morrisons sold their house for a limo and a half. You're sitting in a gold mine here, and you don't even know it." His gaze at such moments wasn't filial. It was the gaze of an appraiser. And then, one May evening, when the scent of lilacs outside the window was so thick you could choke on it, Marcus struck. We were sitting in the living room, the very one where Diana had died, and he was holding a folder, thick, boring, deadly official. "Dad," he began, his voice soft as a velvet glove, "we need to talk about estate planning. It's important. You don't have a living trust, do you?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "I have a will, Marcus. Everything is in place." He sighed, like a patient teacher explaining a lesson to a slow-witted child. "A will goes through probate proceedings. It's a nightmare, Dad. Months, sometimes years of court and paperwork. Lawyers will eat up the lion's share. A living trust is simple. Everything remains yours, but when the time comes, the transfer is instant. No court, no headache." He opened the folder. The pages were covered in fine print, and among them, a sticky, bright orange piece of paper with an arrow pointing to where to sign. My signature. Something clicked loudly in my heart, as if a fuse had tripped. Diana's voice echoed inside. "Robert, never sign anything you haven't read, especially in front of your own son." "I need," I said, my voice firmer than I expected, "my lawyer to look at this. Arnold." A grimace flickered across his face, just for a moment, but I caught it. A flash of pure, unpolished irritation, quick as lightning. He suppressed it immediately, replacing it with understanding, slightly offended concern. "Of course, Dad, of course. I just wanted to save you money, lawyers. A hell of a lot of money. But yeah, whatever you say." I didn't sign. Not that evening, not the next day. I called Arnold Greenspan. Hearing his hoarse, familiar voice, I almost burst into tears of relief. "Arnie, this is Robert Chen. I need help." When I told him everything, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said slowly, enunciating each word, "Robert, my dear friend, don't sign anything. Not a single piece of paper. Not a single receipt. Do you understand? Not a single thing. Bring me these documents." I made an appointment. And I didn't tell Marcus. And from that moment my eyes truly opened. I began to see. I saw Marcus add his name to my checking account. "Just in case, Dad," he reported cheerfully later. He'd done it while I was dozing in the chair, stealing my card. I saw it on the bank statement he'd forgotten to hide. I found Jennifer rummaging through my office file cabinet with Diana and me, old documents. "Dishwasher warranty, Robert," she chirped, blushing. "It's making a funny noise." But the dishwasher worked perfectly, and I saw how their conversations, whenever I walked in, would take on sticky, awkward pauses. And then that night happened. I couldn't sleep. Insomnia is my new, faithful companion. I went downstairs for water, and I heard it. Voices from the kitchen. Not conversation, but a hissing, angry whisper, full of thorns. "We can't wait forever, Marcus," Jennifer hissed. "Emma needs braces. Tyler needs a tutor. Your dad could live to be 100. He has a healthy liver." "Quiet," Marcus barked, but there was fury in his whisper too. "I'm being honest. The trust is the key. If he'd just signed it." "He wants a lawyer. His lawyer." "Then we need a different plan, Marcus. We need a different approach." I froze in the dark hallway. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought the sound would give me away. "What other approach?" Marcus asked, and there was no surprise in his voice. There was only a weary willingness to listen. "There are ways," Jennifer's voice lowered, more intimate, making it even more terrifying. "My friend Cheryl, her father was diagnosed with dementia. She created a power of attorney, declared him incompetent, placed him in an institution, and sold the house. Everything is clear. Your dad doesn't have dementia, of course, but he's 67. He lives alone. He forgets where he puts his glasses. What if we find a doctor who examines him, who confirms that he can no longer manage his affairs? We'd simply be protecting him, Marcus. Protecting him from himself. This house, it's wasted here. We could sell it, place him in a good private boarding school with 24-hour care, and with the rest, provide for the children's future. It's called responsible planning. That's what loving children do." I didn't hear the rest. I recoiled from that voice, from that icy, calculating love. I retreated upstairs to my small room and stared at the ceiling until morning. I didn't sleep. I was thinking. The next morning, I acted like a spy in my own city. I called Arnold from my car, parked 2 blocks from home, outside that coffee shop on Hawthorne, where Diana and I always got croissants. My voice trembled with adrenaline and sleepless rage. "Arnie, I need to meet. Today. This can't wait any longer." He understood without further ado. An hour later, I was sitting in his office, as warm and dusty with books as Arnold himself. I tossed that very folder, that very siren temptress from Marcus, onto the desk. Arnold put on his glasses and immersed himself in reading. I watched his face gradually harden. There was no expression on it. The diagnosis. The same one they give to the terminally ill. "Robert," he finally said, putting the papers aside as if they were stained. "If you sign here, you legally cease to be the master of your own life. You'll transfer all control, the house, the accounts, everything, to this trust, with Marcus as the sole trustee. You'll become a mere beneficiary, a ghost in your own house. He could sell it from under you tomorrow, and you wouldn't be able to utter a word." "But it says I'm the beneficiary during my lifetime," I blurted out, the last shred of naive hope. "Yes," Arnold nodded, his eyes filled with bottomless regret. "The beneficiary, to whom the trustee, your son, will distribute funds at his own discretion, when he sees fit, and in whatever amount he sees fit. If he decides you're better off in a full-time care facility, he has every right to put you there and sell your house to pay for it. Your no won't mean anything anymore." The world around me swam. An icy wave of nausea washed over me. This can't be legal. This can't be done." "It can, Robert, if you sign this voluntarily. That's the whole point. They create the illusion of care, so you'll hand over the keys to your cage." He removed his glasses and looked at me directly, with a friendly, stern expression. "Now answer me honestly, old friend. Do you feel safe in your home? Right now? Right this minute?" I closed my eyes. Images flashed before me. Marcus's appraising gaze, sliding over the walls like items at auction. Jennifer's cold, calculating eyes. Their whispers in the kitchen at night, full of the words dementia and institution. "I don't know," I whispered, and the confession was bitter as wormwood. "I don't know, Arnold." "Then listen to me carefully." He folded his hands on the table. "First, we will protect everything you have. I will set up a new, genuine trust, where you will be the trustee, where any changes will require your explicit, affirmative consent and the approval of an independent person of your choosing. Second," he paused, choosing his words, "I will put you in touch with someone, Frank Delmonico. He's a private investigator. He specializes in financial abuse of the elderly." "A detective? I don't need—" I began, feeling a surge of humiliating shame. "Rober," Arnold interrupted me, and for the first time, steel crept into his voice. "What you described, what's contained in these papers, this isn't a family dispute. It's an elaborate scheme. I've seen it. First, they move into help. Then they take control of your finances. Then they isolate you from your friends, create a narrative about your incapacity, and then they take everything. I need you to take this with deadly seriousness." I met Frank Delmonico 2 days later. He turned out to be a man in his 50s, a former cop, with a face marked by life's experiences, indelibly, but not embittered. He looked at the world calmly, without illusions. "So, Robert," he began, jotting down notes in a notebook. "They've been in the house for 2 months, okay? Did they try to limit your interactions in any way? With friends, for example? Did they create situations where it was difficult or uncomfortable for you to go anywhere?" I thought about it, and a piece of pasta stuck in my throat. I remembered how Marcus now insistently offered to drive me even to the library, even though I always drove myself. "At your age, you need to watch your nerves, Dad. The traffic in the city has become insane." I remembered his dismissive comments about Bernard after their only meeting. "He's wearing you out, that old grump, Dad. You look tired after talking to him." He'd said it softly, with concern. But now those words echoed in my ears differently. Like the first, barely noticeable twist of duct tape they were beginning to wrap around my life. Frank nodded, as if I'd just given him the password to the safe. Classic. Isolation is the first step. Now the finances. Do they know your situation? The numbers? I smiled bitterly. I never laid out my statements in front of them. But the questions kept coming, about retirement, about savings, and of course, about the house. Always about the house. Diana and I paid off the mortgage back in 12. The house is mine. Entirely. Frank opened his notebook, and his pen paused over the blank page. Robert, this is the picture I'm getting. They're building a case about your diminished capacity. All this talk of forgetfulness hints that you need help making decisions. This plan of theirs with a doctor's power of attorney. They're looking for a loophole. If they find a neurologist who questions your sanity, they'll gain control, even if you're perfectly sane. The world narrowed to the desk in this office. How do we stop this? I asked, and my voice sounded alien. Documentation, Frank said clearly. I'll install several cameras in the house, small ones. In Oregon, audio recording is legal if it's done by one of the parties to the conversation, meaning you consent to it being recorded in your own home. We'll monitor their conversations when you're not around. We'll develop a plan, and when we have enough evidence, we'll report it to Adult Protective Services, and possibly the police. Robert, financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. If they're trying to defraud you of your property, it's jail time. I sat staring at his notebook, and I saw something else, not the lines. Marcus, the boy with the scraped knee, trustingly extending his hand to me. Marcus, the graduate in his ridiculous gown, searching for my eyes in the crowd. Marcus, hunched over his mother's coffin, his face contorted with genuine silent grief. Are you sure? My voice broke into a whisper. Maybe I made this whole thing up. Maybe they're just cornered. Money, stress. They don't think about what they're doing. Frank's expression softened, but the hard, professional sadness in his eyes didn't flicker. Mr. Chen, I understand, but in my experience, people don't create fraudulent trusts out of stress. They create them when they're making a clear, cold choice between their parent and their own well-being. I'm incredibly sorry, but right now you need to protect yourself and the memory of the life you've built. We installed cameras the following week. 3 small, black, merciless eyes. In the kitchen, in the living room, in the hallway by the door to my caged room. Frank also handed me a voice recorder, disguised as a ballpoint pen. Wear it at all times, he said, even when you sleep. 2 weeks. For 14 days and nights, I lived in a double dimension. I smiled at dinner, listened to Tyler's saxophone, and in the evening, locked in my room, watched the footage. And what I saw and heard destroyed the last vestiges of my father within me. In the recordings, when I was in the library or at Arnold's, Marcus and Jennifer methodically, like seasoned detectives, searched my office. He flipped through and photographed folders with house documents and old insurance policies on his phone. She searched through desk drawers for bank statements, making copies. And one day, Jennifer, with a triumphant whisper of, "Bingo!" pulled my old leather-bound notebook out of a drawer. The very one in which Diana made me carefully write down all the passwords, from online banking to email. They photographed every page. But the scariest part wasn't this thieving ritual. The scariest part was Marcus's phone conversation, which I captured on my pen and paper recorder. He stood in the living room, thinking I was upstairs, talking to someone with a businesslike, urgent air. Yes, we need a neurologist to do a cognitive evaluation, someone who understands the situation. My father is 67, and he's been having increasingly frequent episodes of confusion, losing things, signing papers without reading them. We're very concerned.